7 cadets entered the cafeteria laughing. A moment later, nobody was laughing. Security called it self-defense. Witnesses called it restraint. And the academy quietly changed its rules the next day. Galactic Naval Academy was famous for 2 things. It produced the best officers in the sector. And it broke the ones who thought reputation mattered more than discipline. The main cafeteria looked calm from a distance. Lines of tables. Bright banners. A dozen species eating a dozen strange meals. But calm was a costume. Underneath it, ego walked around like it owned the floor. A human sat alone near a corner wall. Not hiding. Not shrinking. Just alone. His name was Cadet Jonah Cade. Earthborn. Deathworld category. New transfer. Quiet file. No friends listed. Jonah ate slowly, like he had nowhere else to be. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes weren't. They moved the way a hunter's eyes move. Not searching for trouble. Just noticing where it would come from. Across the room, 7 cadets watched him like he was a puzzle they wanted to smash. They were older, louder, and used to the cafeteria belonging to them. They didn't share the same species, but they shared the same habit. They collected fear from smaller cadets and called it respect. The leader was Varrox, a heavy-boned Brachian with plated shoulders and a grin that never reached his eyes. Beside him were the twins, Sev and Saw, both lean with fast hands and faster mouths. Then came Linka, a razor-tailed Vesping who loved humiliation more than victory. Drone, a thick-necked Malka with a laugh like a door slamming. And finally Kel and Ruve, crystalline Etherians who believed their bodies made them untouchable. They moved toward Jonah's table in a loose arc. Not a sprint. Not a rush. A performance. Nearby cadets noticed and quietly shifted away. Trays moved. Seats scraped. Conversations died. An empty circle opened like the room itself was holding its breath. Varrox slammed his palm down on Jonah's table. Cups jumped. Utensils clinked. Jonah didn't flinch. Varrox leaned closer. Human. You're in our section. Jonah swallowed, dabbed his mouth with a napkin, and looked up. His expression was calm in a way that felt insulting. He glanced at the empty seats around him like he was checking a map. I didn't see a sign, Jonah said. Did you place one? Or do you just announce ownership and hope the universe agrees? A few cadets at the edge of the circle stiffened. That wasn't fear. That was recognition. Sev circled left. Saw circled right. Linka stepped behind Jonah's chair, tail flicking. Drone cracked his knuckles. Kel and Ruve spread out to block the obvious exits. 7 against 1. Old math. They loved that math. Varrox smiled wider. Stand up and move. Jonah's gaze drifted to each of them in turn. He was counting angles. Distance. Hands. Tails. Weight distribution. He wasn't guessing what they might do. He was predicting what they thought they would do. And if I don't? Jonah asked. Drone leaned in, breath sour. Then we teach you how things work here. Jonah nodded slowly, like he was listening to a lecture. Okay, he said. Just so we're clear, you're choosing this. Varrox's grin turned sharp. Choosing what? Jonah pushed his tray aside and stood. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just ready. The bullies mistook readiness for challenge. They wanted a victim to plead. They got a problem that agreed to the terms. Varrox swung first. A heavy, confident strike meant to end the story quickly. Jonah wasn't where the strike landed. He slid half a step, the way water moves around a rock, and let Varrox's momentum become a mistake. Jonah's elbow rose, short and precise, into a gap under Varrox's plating. The sound wasn't loud. It was worse than loud. It was the quiet sound of air leaving a body that didn't expect to lose it. Varrox folded slightly, surprise flashing across his face. Sev lunged, aiming for Jonah's throat with fast fingers. Jonah caught the wrist, turned it, and stepped in close. Not a punch. A controlled twist and a hard shoulder into the chest. Sev hit the floor like his strings were cut. Saw attacked from the other side, trying to grab Jonah's arm and drag him down. Jonah dipped his weight, pivoted, and used Saw's pull to sling him forward. Saw slammed into the table edge, gasping. Linka's tail snapped toward Jonah's knees, a clean disabling strike. Jonah hopped just enough to let it pass, then planted his heel down on the tail, careful, measured, not crushing. Linka screamed anyway, because pain doesn't need crushed bones to be loud. Drone roared and charged, all mass and rage. Jonah backed 2 steps, luring him into open space. Then Jonah dropped low, hooked a leg, and redirected the charge sideways. Drone didn't just fall. He skidded, hit the floor, and kept sliding until he met a support pillar. The pillar didn't move. Drone did. Kel and Ruve finally committed together, their crystal limbs swinging in mirrored rhythm. They were beautiful fighters. Clean angles. Sharp lines. They fought like sculptures that believed elegance was enough. Jonah fought like a species that learned survival by improvising. He fainted high, then went low, striking joints that didn't like to bend under sudden torque. Kel's stance broke. Ruve tried to compensate. Jonah didn't punish. He ended. In moments, 7 bodies were down. Some groaning. Some shocked quiet. All alive. Jonah stood in the center of the circle, breathing steady. His hands were open. Not clenched. Not shaking. The most frightening thing wasn't his strength. It was his control. An instructor finally pushed through the crowd, face pale. "Cadet Cade," the instructor barked. "What happened here?" Jonah looked at the 7 on the floor. Then at the instructor. Then at the watching ring of cadets who had suddenly learned something important. "They asked me to move," Jonah said. "I declined. They insisted." Varix coughed, trying to sit up, pride still alive even when his body begged him not to. You Deathworld freak." Jonah crouched beside him. His voice lowered, not for kindness, but for precision. "Listen," Jonah said. "I could have done worse. I didn't. Because this is school." He stood again, eyes calm. "But if you ever forget that, you'll graduate into a universe that doesn't have instructors nearby." The cafeteria stayed silent. Not because Jonah demanded it. Because everyone else suddenly understood the truth. Humans didn't need to be the biggest. They didn't need numbers. They didn't even need anger. They only needed you to make the first mistake. The medical wing was full. The rumor network was fuller. By the time the stretchers rolled out of the cafeteria, the story had already grown teeth. Some cadets said the bullies never landed a hit. Others said the human fought like a machine. A few said Jonah smiled the whole time, which wasn't true. Jonah didn't smile. He looked tired. In a quiet corridor outside the infirmary, Jonah sat on a bench with his hands on his knees. A security officer approached, Officer Mirel Soto, small, sharp-eyed, and old enough to have stopped believing in kids being kids. "Cadet Cade," Soto said. "Walk me through it." Jonah told the truth. He didn't decorate it. He didn't brag. He didn't ask for praise. Soto listened, eyes narrowing at the parts that mattered. The formation. The circling. The blocked exits. The toxic tail strike. "That wasn't a prank," Soto said quietly. "That was an organized assault." Jonah's jaw tightened. "Yeah. Why didn't you report them before?" Soto asked. Jonah looked up. His gaze was steady, but there was something behind it, something older than his uniform. "Because I've met bullies before," Jonah said. "And reports don't scare them. Consequences do." Soto studied him. "You could have crippled them." Jonah's eyes flicked toward the infirmary doors. "Didn't need to." Soto exhaled, slow. "You're going to make enemies." Jonah nodded once. "I already did." Across the academy, the news didn't land like a lesson. It landed like an insult. Some species had built their pride on the idea that humans were dangerous only in stories. Others had accepted humans as useful allies, but still assumed they were emotionally soft. And a certain group, quiet, polished, ambitious, saw Jonah's cafeteria incident as a threat to their order. That group called itself the Meridian Circle. Officially, it was a leadership society. Unofficially, it was a pressure machine. That evening, Jonah received an invitation. No signature. No sender. Just a place and a time. A maintenance deck. A room used for storage. A single line beneath the message. Come alone. Prove you belong. Jonah stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he deleted the message. He went anyway. Not because he wanted their approval. Because he wanted to see who thought they could steer him. The maintenance deck smelled like cold metal and old air. The lights were dimmer here, the corridors narrower. Perfect for intimidation. Jonah walked calmly, boots steady. His breathing stayed even. When he reached the storage room, the door slid open without a sound. Inside were 5 cadets, not 7. Different strategy. Different purpose. They stood in a semicircle, posture controlled, expressions polite. The leader stepped forward, Cadet Ilvan Marr, tall, elegant, and dangerous in the way that didn't need muscles. Jonah Cade, Ilvan said, smiling. You made a scene. Jonah didn't return the smile. Your invite didn't include snacks. So I'm guessing you didn't bring me here to celebrate. A few in the back chuckled. Then stopped when Ilvan lifted a finger. We prefer order, Ilvan said. The Academy prefers order. Your incident disrupts the balance. Jonah tilted his head. The balance where 7 people jump one and the system shrugs. Ilvan's eyes stayed pleasant. That's not how we would describe it. Jonah's voice stayed calm. That's because you're selling it. Ilvan stepped closer. You're from a death world. You're built for chaos. But the galaxy isn't your planet, human. Here, influence matters more than force. Jonah nodded slowly. Okay. Ilvan's smile sharpened. We can protect you. Or we can make your life here complicated. Jonah looked around the room. No cameras. No obvious witnesses. He understood the play. They wanted him to swing first. They wanted him to become the violent human in their narrative. So Jonah did what humans did best. He refused the narrative. He tapped his wrist console. A small light blinked. Ilvan's eyes flicked to it. What is that? Jonah's tone stayed casual. My personal recorder. Earth standard. Auto sync. If my heart rate spikes or my vitals drop, it sends everything to security. The room went still. One cadet in the back shifted. You're lying. Jonah shrugged. Maybe. Ilvan's smile faded just a fraction. Turn it off. Jonah's eyes hardened. No. Ilvan stared at him, weighing options. Force would be risky. Threats were already documented. And Jonah didn't look frightened. He looked like a person who grew up solving problems with whatever tools were available. Ilvan's voice softened. You're clever, he said. But clever isn't enough forever. Jonah met his gaze. It usually is, Jonah said. Especially when the other side keeps doing the same stupid thing. Ilvan stepped back, masking irritation with grace. Very well. Consider this a warning. Jonah walked to the door. Before leaving, he paused. One more thing, Jonah said, without turning around. If you really want order, start by controlling your people. He left the room behind him, door sliding shut like a verdict. In the hallway, Jonah exhaled slowly. Not fear. Focus. Because cafeteria bullies were simple. But people who smiled while threatening you, those were the ones who started wars. The next day, the Academy didn't punish Jonah. That was the first surprise. The second surprise was the message posted on the official board. All cadets will attend a revised ethics and combat protocol briefing. Nobody wrote Jonah's name. But everybody saw the shadow it cast. In the auditorium, rows of cadets sat shoulder to shoulder. A sea of different eyes, different instincts, different pride. On stage, Commander Harville Drax stood still, hands behind his back. He was old, scarred, and respected. The kind of officer who had survived enough battles to stop caring about politics. Beside him stood Jonah, expression neutral. Not proud. Not ashamed. Just present. Commander Drax spoke without softness. Some of you think the Academy is a game, he said. You think status is earned by who you can push around. The room shifted uncomfortably. Drax continued. You are training to command fleets. If you cannot control your impulses in a cafeteria, you will get crews killed in vacuum. His gaze swept across them, sharp as a blade. And for those of you who still believe you can win through intimidation, you've been living on easy planets. A ripple of tension went through the seats. Drax lifted a hand toward Jonah. Cadet Cade is from Earth. A death world. And here's the part you keep missing. He leaned forward slightly. Humans didn't dominate their planet because they were born strongest. They dominated because they adapt faster than fear spreads. Whispers moved like wind. Then Drax did something unexpected. He invited questions. A cadet stood, tall, armored, proud. What does this have to do with tactics? The cadet demanded. We're here to learn war. Commander Drax nodded. Good. Then pay attention. He looked at Jonah. Cadet. Explain what you did, without bragging. Jonah stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture. I didn't win because I'm a human, Jonah said. I won because they told me what they were going to do. He pointed subtly to the crowd. 7 people don't approach alone unless they plan violence. They spread out to block exits. They circle to remove witnesses. They choose angles. A hush fell. Jonah continued. And then they relied on one assumption. That I would react like prey. He paused, letting the idea settle. I didn't. The armored cadet scoffed. So the lesson is be human? Jonah shook his head. The lesson is, stop underestimating what you don't understand. Commander Drax stepped in. And here is the real lesson, he said. Humans are not dangerous because they enjoy violence. They are dangerous because they treat violence like engineering. The room went quiet in a deeper way. After the briefing, Jonah expected the pressure to ease. Instead, it evolved. Because public correction doesn't end pride. It just teaches pride to hide. The Meridian Circle didn't strike him again in the dark. They struck him in the open. 2 days later, Jonah's name appeared on a trial roster for an advanced simulation. Normally, first years didn't get selected. The notice was official. Stamped. Signed. Approved. And the opponents listed weren't first years either. They were a mixed squad of upper-class cadets with high rankings. A trap wrapped in paperwork. Soto found Jonah in the training hall and handed him the slate. Someone's trying to get you removed without touching you, she said. Jonah read the roster carefully. His eyes stopped at one name, Ilvan Ma. Jonah's lips pressed into a thin line. Of course. Soto crossed her arms. You don't have to accept. Jonah looked up. I do. Soto frowned. Why? Jonah's answer was simple. Because this doesn't stop until they learn. The simulation chamber was a dome of holograms and sensors. It could replicate boarding actions, ship corridors, planetary storms, whatever the Academy wanted to test. That day, the scenario was labeled. Evacuation under hostile contact. Translation. Chaos. Jonah entered with a small team of 4 other cadets assigned randomly. A shy aquatic navigator named Pella, a quiet mechanic named Run, a sharp-minded drone specialist named Yora, and a tall medic named Kesh. They looked at Jonah like he was a storm they had been assigned to walk beside. The opposing team entered from the far side, uniforms crisp, confidence polished. Ilvan stood among them like a king among blades. The simulation started. Sirens wailed. Lights flashed. Holographic smoke rolled across a corridor. A panicked crowd of civilians appeared, AI constructs, but programmed with convincing fear. They surged toward exits, blocking lanes, creating unpredictable movement. Ilvan's team moved like a spear, fast, aggressive, cutting through. They weren't trying to evacuate. They were trying to win. Jonah's team hesitated. Jonah didn't. "Yora," Jonah said. "Eyes above. Drones in the ceiling. Find their blind side." Yora blinked. "What?" "Do it," Jonah said. "Run," Jonah continued. "Seal the side hatch. We control flow." "Run swallowed. We can do that." "Humans call it a door," Jonah said. "Yes. We can." Pella looked overwhelmed. Jonah turned slightly toward her. "Breathe. Follow my voice. You're not alone." That was the part that made Jonah different. He wasn't only clever. He pulled people together like gravity. Ilvan's team pushed into the civilian crowd, forcing their way through. The crowd thickened, slowing them. They got angry. Jonah guided civilians instead of fighting them. He created lanes, used calm commands, placed his teammates as anchors to shape movement. Then he did something no one expected in a combat simulation. He offered help to the enemy team. A civilian construct fell near Ilvan's path, blocking him. Jonah stepped in, lifted the construct aside, and cleared the route. Ilvan stared at him, confused. Jonah's voice stayed neutral. "You're welcome." Ilvan's confusion turned to irritation. Because you can't easily villainize someone who keeps choosing the higher ground. But Ilvan had come to win. So Ilvan changed the scenario. He ordered his squad to accidentally trigger a firelock override, sealing Jonah's team in a narrower corridor with rising simulated heat. A perfect accident. No fingerprints. Just failure attributed to chaos. Jonah saw the override flash and understood immediately. His team panicked. Pelas ranges chu. Kesha's breathing quickened. Jonah stayed steady. "Everyone," Jonah said, voice calm. "Look at me." They did. "We are not trapped," Jonah said. "We are contained. There's a difference." He pointed to the ceiling vents. "Run." "That great." "Yora. Drone line."
Pela. Route map.
"Kesh. Keep them steady." In a Deathworlder's mind, containment was just another environment. And humans were raised by hostile environments. They tore the vent open, sent drones through, and found an auxiliary maintenance route. Not designed for evacuation. But possible. They moved. Not fast like Ilvan's spear. Smart like water. When Jonah's team emerged behind Ilvan's squad, the simulation scoreboard flickered wildly. Because the system couldn't decide whether this was genius or cheating. Jonah didn't celebrate. He moved straight to the civilian zone and guided the last group to safety. The simulation ended. Commander Drax's voice boomed over the speakers. Results: Jonah Cade's unit completes evacuation with minimal losses. Opposing unit achieves fast contact, high casualties. Ilvan's expression tightened. Jonah looked at him across the chamber. No grin. No threat. Just one quiet truth in his eyes. You can rig the rules, but you can't rig what humans do when cornered. Ilvan didn't attack Jonah again. Not directly. Instead, the Meridian Circle did something smarter. They went higher. A formal complaint reached the Academy Council. Human cadet demonstrates dangerous unpredictability. Recommend restriction from sensitive training. It was written cleanly. Cited protocols. Used the right words. It wasn't about Jonah's fists anymore. It was about fear of what humans represented. The council scheduled a review. A public hearing. A chance to label Jonah as a risk without calling it prejudice. Jonah walked into the hearing chamber and saw the faces waiting for him. Commanders. Advisors. Legal officers. And behind them, cadets watching from the gallery. Soto stood near the wall, arms folded, jaw tight. Commander Drax sat at the front, expression unreadable. Ilvan sat among the observers like he belonged there, calm and satisfied. The lead counselor spoke. Cadet Jonah Cade, she said. You are accused of escalating conflict, provoking hostility, and demonstrating behavior unsuitable for mixed-species command. Jonah didn't flinch. Understood, he said. The counselor gestured. Your response? Jonah took a slow breath. Then he did the last thing they expected. He agreed. Yes, Jonah said. I am unsuitable, if your definition of suitable means easy to predict. A ripple went through the room. Jonah continued, voice still simple, still calm. My planet trained me. Not with kindness. With consequences. He looked at the counselor. You want commanders who can adapt when plans die. You want officers who can keep a crew alive when the universe turns hostile. He paused. And then you want to punish me for being built exactly for that. Ilvan's eyes narrowed slightly. The counselor leaned forward. Are you claiming your actions were necessary? Jonah nodded once. Yes. Even the cafeteria incident, she pressed. Jonah's gaze turned toward the gallery. He didn't look for sympathy. He looked for truth. I didn't start it, Jonah said. I ended it. And I ended it without killing anyone. That landed heavier than an accusation. Because it forced the room to face the part they didn't want to name. Humans could do worse. They just didn't. A second counselor spoke, voice skeptical. Your simulation performance suggests you use unconventional methods. This can disrupt team cohesion. Jonah turned slightly. Respectfully, he said, team cohesion isn't about doing what's normal. It's about doing what works, together. He gestured toward the gallery. My unit was random assignment. Different species. Different fears. We succeeded because we communicated, adapted, and protected the vulnerable. He paused, then added, softer. I didn't outsmart aliens. I helped humans and aliens outsmart panic. The chamber went quiet. Commander Drax finally spoke. One question, Cadet, he said. Jonah faced him. Drax's eyes were sharp. Why did you help your opponent's civilians in the simulation? Jonah didn't answer quickly. He chose his words like tools. Because, Jonah said, winning isn't the point. Getting people home is. That sentence changed the air. Because HFY wasn't just humans hit harder. It was humans choose meaning. Ilvan stood in the gallery, raising a hand with polite permission. The counselor allowed it. Ilvan's voice was smooth. Cadet Cade speaks beautifully, Ilvan said. But beauty doesn't erase risk. Humans have a history of escalation. If a human commands a mixed crew under stress, what stops him from treating everyone as expendable? The trap was elegant. Make Jonah defend humanity's past. Make him carry the weight of war like a chain. Jonah looked at Ilvan for a long moment. Then he nodded. You're right, Jonah said. Humans have escalated. We've made terrible choices. Ilvan's smile returned. Jonah continued. And we learned. Not perfectly. Not quickly. But we learned. He looked at the council, then at the cadets. On Earth, when we finally understood the cost, we started building rules around ourselves. He lifted his wrist console. Black boxes. Protocols. Checks. Red teams. Fail-safes. We design systems assuming humans can be dangerous, and we build responsibility into the design. His eyes returned to Ilvan. You're afraid of what humans might do. So am I. That's why I plan for it. Ilvan's smile faltered. Jonah's voice remained calm, but the meaning sharpened. Your method is control through fear. Mine is control through accountability. The counselors exchanged glances. Soto's shoulders eased slightly, like she'd been holding her breath for days. Commander Drax leaned back. Council, he said, I have seen enough. The counselor hesitated, then spoke the decision. Cadet Jonah Cade will not be restricted, she said. Instead, he will be assigned to the next mixed species command trial, as acting lead. The room erupted in whispers. Ilvan's eyes turned cold. Because now Jonah wouldn't just survive the academy. He would shape it. The command trial was not a classroom game. It was a live exercise in a controlled sector of space. A training ship. A simulated distress signal. Real coordination. Jonah stood on the bridge with a crew made of cadets who didn't trust each other yet. Different languages. Different instincts. Different assumptions about leadership. And somewhere in the background, the Meridian Circle waited for him to fail. The distress signal came from a disabled transport drifting near a debris field. The exercise instructions were simple. Rescue the transport. Protect your ship. Avoid escalation. But the debris field was thick. And the transport's transponder kept flickering. Yora, now assigned to Jonah again, frowned at her console. Signal pattern is wrong, she said. It's shaped. Pella's fingers danced over navigation. Debris is moving, she whispered. Like it's being guided. Kesh looked up. Someone wants us to commit. Jonah listened. Then nodded. This is a bait scenario, Jonah said. A non-human tactical cadet, Rel, scoffed. Or you're paranoid. Jonah didn't snap back. He simply asked, on your world, what happens if you assume it's not bait? Rel hesitated. We lose ships, Rel admitted. Jonah nodded. Exactly. Jonah turned to the bridge crew. Here's what we're doing, he said. We rescue them, without stepping into their trap. He gave short, clear orders. No shouting. No ego. Just structure. Yora deployed drones to map the debris field in real time. Pella plotted a path that avoided predictable lanes. Kesh prepared emergency response pods. Run rerouted power to reinforce shielding where debris density peaked. The transport suddenly emitted a second signal. This one was a military ping. Unknown origin. The exercise just became something sharper. A voice crackled through comms, distorted. Academy vessel, stand down. Transfer your cargo and crew for inspection. Rel's eyes widened. That's not part of the script. Soto's earlier warning echoed in Jonah's mind. They'll stop touching you and start moving the world around you. Jonah didn't panic. He didn't posture. He did what humans did best when a new problem appeared. He redefined the problem. Unknown vessel, Jonah said into comms, tone calm. This is a training ship with no strategic value. State your authority. The voice responded with amusement. Authority is whoever survives. The debris field shifted again. A shape emerged in the hologram, small craft hiding behind scrap, using it like camouflage. Ambush, Yora said. Multiple contacts. Cadets on the bridge tensed, fear rising like a tide. Jonah kept his voice steady. Everyone breathe, he said. Fear makes you predictable.
Hello, Cadet Pella.
Can you make the debris field work for us? Pella swallowed, then nodded slowly. If we change vector, we can drag a wake through it. Jonah nodded. Do it. He turned to Run. Can you vent a controlled burst from the aft thrusters? Run's eyes widened. That's dangerous. Jonah's expression stayed calm. On Earth, he said, we call it using the environment. Run nodded. I can do it. Jonah turned to Yora. Drones to the far side. Make them think we're running. Yora's lips parted in realization. A decoy. Jonah nodded. And then we stop, right where they expect us to be weakest. The bridge crew stared at him. This wasn't standard doctrine. This was Deathworld thinking. Turn chaos into a tool. The ship shifted course, carving a new path through the debris. The drones scattered, broadcasting false heat signatures. The enemy craft broke cover, chasing the fleeing signals. Then Jonah cut engines. Silence, except for the hum of systems. The enemy craft surged forward, expecting an easy capture. Jonah's voice stayed calm. Now, he said. Run fired the controlled burst. Not a weapon. A shove of air and force. The debris field reacted like a storm. Scrap moved, spun, collided. The enemy craft didn't crash into Jonah. They crashed into the consequences of their own certainty. Alarms blared on the enemy channels. The distorted voice returned, suddenly less amused. "What did you?" Jonah answered simply, "I refused your assumptions." Kesh launched rescue pods toward the transport while the ambushers struggled to recover. Pella guided the ship in a slow, precise arc, staying out of the worst debris currents while keeping pressure on the enemy's escape routes. They didn't destroy the attackers. They contained them. They forced surrender without turning the sector into a graveyard. And then the final twist arrived. The unknown vessel pinged an Academy encryption key. Yora's face went pale. "It's an Academy craft." Soto's voice came through a secure line. "Cadet Cade," she said softly. "This wasn't a simulation mistake." Jonah's jaw tightened. "Who authorized it?" Soto hesitated. "Council is investigating," she said. "But the Meridian Circle has friends." Jonah looked at his crew. They were shaken, but alive. And more than that, united. He understood something then. This was never only about bullies. It was about whether humans were allowed to lead in a galaxy that feared what it didn't control. Jonah took a breath, steady. He opened comms to the Academy channel. His voice carried across the training sector. "This is Cadet Jonah Cade," he said. "We received an unauthorized hostile test. We neutralized it without lethal force. We completed rescue. We protected civilians." He paused. "And I am filing a formal report." Ilvan's network wanted Jonah to explode. Wanted him to become the monster in their story. Jonah became something worse for them. He became evidence. Back at the Academy, the fallout hit like a quake. Investigations. Suspensions. Quiet meetings behind closed doors. The Meridian Circle didn't disappear. Power rarely does. But for the first time, it had to look over its shoulder. Because the human didn't just survive their games. He learned the rules, documented the moves, and forced the system to face itself. And among the cadets, something new spread faster than fear. Hope. Not the soft kind. The kind that changes behavior. The next time a bully tried to claim a table, a smaller cadet didn't move. A friend stood beside them. Then another. Because humans didn't just fight. They reminded everyone what courage could look like. When it was shared.